possible. Looks like we've got a decent number of people on the call now, so yeah, as mentioned, we will go ahead and get started. Let's see here. I'm going to share my webcam as well so folks can see me. Hi, my name is Greg Koch. I'm a product manager here at Hydromet, located at our Colorado facility here in the United States. So again, thank you all for joining today's Demo Days presentation of ecoLog 1000. So we will go ahead and jump into this presentation. Let's see, hopefully, yeah, you should all be able to see the slideshow that I'm presenting. This will be a bit interactive, so I will be going through about a presentation, probably about 35 minutes or so, would be my initial guess. You do have the ability to submit questions throughout. I will probably hold off for answering questions until the very end, just to keep a bit of a flow going here. But then at the end, should have plenty of time for Q&A. So as questions arise from the presentation that pique your interest or you'd like to know more about, feel free to submit them. And then, yeah, as mentioned, there will be a recording of today's webinar that can be sent out at the end. So in order to ask a question, you should all see this GoToWebinar control panel that's shown on the left here of the screen. By clicking the little orange button with a white arrow in it, that should open up a bigger panel, which should allow you to see a questions tab, and that should allow you to ask questions. When you do, they should pop up on my side, and then as mentioned, we will have plenty of time at the end to kind of open it up for me to go through those questions that are in the chat and answer them. And if questions come up later, feel free to contact us afterward. I'm sure the team here at Hydromet would be more than happy to discuss any questions you may have. So that was a little bit of the how to use the GoToWebinar platform a little bit. In terms of the agenda of what we're going to go over here, I'm going to give a pretty high-level overview of the ecoLog 1000, talk through operating the ecoLog 1000 with the user interface. Some of you may be familiar with that. LinkComm. We're going to talk about measuring conductivity because it is a bit of a newer feature on the ecoLog 1000 that we have recently launched. We'll talk about how to calibrate your conductivity sensor using the user interface, which is a pretty convenient feature of this device. Briefly speak on the data transmission journey and how the data from the ecoLog 1000 can get to your data management solution. And then talk about the ecoLog 1000 toolbox, which is just another utility that can be used to help you understand how the device is going to operate for you. And then, as mentioned, save plenty of time for Q&A. So the ecoLog 1000 itself, it is an all-in-one level logger and telemetry solution. So, what does that mean? This is a pressure transducer, so it is a sensor that is going to measure pressure of water, which can convert into level, feet or meters of water, as well as temperature of the water. And we do now, as mentioned, have a version that can also measure the conductivity of that water. And then it has an integrated cable that runs to the logger and telemetry solution, which is what you see top right of that screen there. And I'll show one in person here as well. But that is the housing that has the battery, desiccant, cellular modem, everything you need to store and transmit that data back to your server that you may have. The sensor itself, many of you may have used our sensors in the past, so the PLS is pretty much what that is on the end of the ecoLog 1000. So very robust sensor that has a lot of advantages, many years of use in the field. Trusted quality product there. And then, as I mentioned, or the PLS-C, which has that conductivity capability added onto the PLS. The logger itself, it is a BLE Bluetooth connection to LinkComm, so you can use your smartphone or your PC. Both typically have Bluetooth enabled on them, and you can connect directly to the device in the field without needing to bring any kind of cable or accessory. Connect right to it with LinkComm in order to make any configuration changes you may need, download data, really anything you could possibly want to do to the device, you can do over that Bluetooth connection using the app, which we'll demonstrate here as well in this demo days. The cellular communication, there's a lot of different ways to send data, HTTP, MQTT, FTP, and SMS, as well as secure versions of some of those IP protocols. And we'll get into a little more details of how you set that up when we do the LinkComm demonstration as well. And it does have the option of, there are different ways to send configuration changes remotely. So if you need to make a change, there are ways to get the ecoLog to update or change remotely without making potentially a time-consuming field visit. So here's a bit more of the overview of what it is, just kind of a bit of more zoomed in, and I'll probably go out of PowerPoint here in a bit. But the mobile communication, it is a cellular modem. It is an LTE-M or Cat M1, so an IoT cellular modem, which is really good for that power consumption, which is definitely one of the advantages of this device. Is it has a battery integrated that can last for up to 10 years, depending on your use case, without needing to change that out. It does have some ability to do redundant data transmissions, making sure, as well as secure data transmissions. So let's see here. Yeah, I think I will just probably jump out of PowerPoint really quick here to show a little more, as kind of get out of a PowerPoint slide. Let's see if I can work this GoToWebinar platform a bit. You hopefully can just see me now. And so here is an ecoLog 1000 for context. So this gives you a little bit more idea of what kind of size we're talking about here. So this is the logger and cell telemetry device. And you can see cable, these are custom cut cable lengths. So when you order one, you'll say exactly what size cable you want. The cable is integrated to the sensor. The sensor, this one is a conductivity variant. So you'll see we have the conductivity cell in the middle. The pressure transducer, as I mentioned, one of the advantages, it is a very robust ceramic pressure cell, so easy to clean. You can just wipe it, not worried about damage. Has a little protective cap on there that's easy to remove as well. But pretty solid instrument here. Again, integrated cable. One of the advantages of that, just one less point of failure potentially in your system. And then that cable runs up into the housing of the unit. This thing's just under 2 inches in diameter, so it fits really well in a 2-inch well. So if you have those, standard 2-inch well, this will fit really nicely in it and be kind of, protected a little bit. In terms of actually any maintenance, well, I guess first, cell modem on the top, and you'll see this little stub antenna. That's really all you need to communicate out. A really small antenna, connects pretty well to any network here. Open it up, you can just unscrew the bottom, kind of slide the hardware or this shell off. This shows what it looks like inside. So you got a lot of the space is that battery. Again, depending on your use case, that can be up to 10-year battery life right there. Got a couple different desiccants in there. I should have mentioned the pressure transducer is a vented pressure transducer, so it will compensate for changes in atmospheric pressure. Really helps to get a really high quality, accurate water level measurement from your device. So in order to vent that out, you need to make sure there's no condensation in the line. We do have desiccant in the device that is pretty easy to swap out if it does get saturated. And the logger will monitor humidity within the logger itself to help you understand when you may need to do maintenance on your device. It's also a pretty quick disconnect for the battery if you need to disconnect the battery for any reason. And the SIM card slot, as I mentioned, there's a cell modem integrated. You can get a data plan from us, or you can purchase your own data plan if you already have one from a provider you prefer. Slide a SIM card, standard SIM card right in there, and off you go, connecting to your cellular network of choice. So I think that was it for the quick demo of the device itself. Let me go back to sharing my screen again. Yeah, hopefully you all can see the presentation again now. That was just a really quick, a little more hands-on than just seeing a PowerPoint. But we will jump into the next slide. As I mentioned, we recently added the ability to measure conductivity with the ecoLog 1000. Why is that important? It really helps you understand some of the water quality aspects of your well or surface water application, help to potentially identify runoff pollution in streams or saltwater intrusion in aquifers. You can use the conductivity measurement to then certain derived parameters. You can calculate out salinity if that's kind of your use case, or total dissolved solids. And both of those calculations are done within our device itself. So I'll show that when I show LinkComm, how you kind of configure that and can use that as well. But just a little bit about the importance of conductivity. Let's see, so operating the ecoLog 1000 with LinkComm. I mentioned LinkComm earlier. This is our operating software for many of our devices here at Hydromet. If some on this call are familiar with XLink or SatLink, it's the same user interface. No need to download a different program. You can download or the same LinkComm you already have can be used to communicate with an ecoLog 1000. It's easy to set up, maintain. There's a Windows and Apple versions, as well as iPhone, iPad, Android platforms. If it's on one of those iPhone or Android platforms, it's available through the App Store. It is completely free to use. So for those on the call, you could download it right now while we're on this webinar and start clicking around, because you can actually use it to set up an ecoLog or play around with the configurations while offline, just to kind of get a sense and a feel for the platform. You don't actually need a device. So feel free to download that from either our website or your App Store, depending on which platform you have for your mobile device. And it is a Bluetooth connection. I think I mentioned that earlier. Yeah, so just really easy kind of standard communication to the device in the field. So now I will stop sharing a bit here and will share LinkComm itself. So that's the next thing we want to walk through here, is actually talking to our ecoLog 1000 with LinkComm. So let me see if I can get this screen up. All right, I'll probably make this a little bigger for you all. All right, so now you all should be able to see LinkComm. So this is the user interface I just mentioned. The way this would work is you'd go in, click on a new station. The station type dropdown is important. This is what type of device you're connecting to. As I mentioned, LinkComm allows you to connect with a lot of different devices that we offer here at Hydromet. The device, you would normally do a Bluetooth scan, and it would find all of the devices near you that you can connect to. So in this case, I'm going to connect to my ecoLog. This should match the serial number on the device. So when you just see a bunch of numbers, you should be able to look at your device and know pretty quickly that that is the device you are trying to connect or configure to, because you may have multiple next to you at this time as well. So in order for this to work, so now LinkComm is going to make a connection with my logger, download its current configuration, and kind of get that initial setup so it knows how the device is set up. So when you connect, the first thing you'll see is this dashboard, kind of orient you all a bit. The bottom are the main tabs. This is kind of the primary navigation through LinkComm. The first one we're on is this dashboard tab. So you can see these are all the measurements currently being taken. The dashboard shows you the measurements, the latest measurement, what time that measurement occurred, and then some other high-level information around, the station ID. Potentially, you'll see some alerts or alarms up here if your station is having trouble or any issues of any type. And then at the bottom, any configured transmissions as well. You'll also see a disconnect button if you ever need to disconnect from the station, and then the in sync button really just shows you that you have not made a configuration change yet, and so what you're seeing is still in line with what the logger has. So to show a little bit, the next tab is the measurements tab. This is really where you configure the logger to take measurements. So you'll see this list here on the left side. These are all the measurements available to you. We'll kind of go through them a little bit briefly one by one. First one is being distance to water. This is really that foundational pressure or level measurement. You can see first kind of settings up here is you have the ability to select the sampling interval, or how often do you want to take a measurement, anywhere from once every 10 seconds to once every 24 hours. Additionally, you can select the measurement type, again, water level, or do you want to measure pressure, for instance. And so if you want to measure pressure, you can output in bar or PSI for the pressure of water the device is seeing, or water level. You can go to measurement mode, and this is where you can measure the level. So it will calculate the feet or meters or centimeters or inches of water above the sensor at the time. Or you can be in distance to water mode, which is more for groundwater setups. It's, how far from the surface is that water level in the aquifer. So it's just a bit of an inverse relationship. And so if you want to do this, you've probably gone out there to the site, you know what it is, what the distance to water is when you set up the device. And so in order to calibrate it, you can actually just click this calibrate button, and it'll retrieve the current value from the sensor. So it does a new measurement. You tell it what you want it to measure, and it will update the device so that that's kind of your reference baseline going forward. So then as water level changes, your distance to water will change appropriately from there. There are some other details around here, like if you're in a unique spot where you might have, a different gravitational acceleration or water density you want it to use in its calculations, you can absolutely set that. Some other things of note here, I won't talk to everything. The manual does do a good job of explaining all of the details about the device here. But you can enable averaging, so you can take a measurement, say every 1 hour, and average every 12 hours, just as an example for the actual measurements you want to be stored and transmitted. It also has what we call limits. They can get a little complicated, but the idea is really that you can set thresholds. So if you have, if water level gets above 10 meters at your site, you want to get a text message. You can set that up, or send a new transmission, or maybe change how frequently you take a measurement. Things like that can be done through that limits tab as well. Distance to water is definitely the most complicated, or this level measurement is definitely the most complicated measurement. Most of the other ones are simpler. Think water temperature. A lot of the features are the same: sampling interval, units, Celsius or Fahrenheit, same kind of averaging and limits that you could set on the distance to level, or distance to water, sorry. A couple other measurements: supply voltage. This just makes sure that the voltage coming from your battery is sufficient to operate the device. Really just kind of a check that your device is operating well. If you start having issues, the voltage could potentially be a source of that issue, but unlikely. I would say the more interesting from a battery health perspective is this power consumption. So what this does is it actually measures in amp hours, or milliamp hours, the amount of power you've consumed with that device over the life. So it's when we deliver these, it's typically a 26 amp hour battery. And so again, we really strive, a lot of the decisions in this product were made around keeping a long-term battery health, so that you do not need to change batteries frequently, and it will operate for a long time in the field without any maintenance being required. And so this helps you do that. It helps predict, based on your usage, when your battery will be consumed, because when you get to that 26 amp hours, that's when your battery will have run out of power. The signal strength, or RSSI, this is just a really quick snapshot of how well you're connecting to your cellular network. So again, just another source of potential troubleshooting if you're having trouble with transmissions. The next three here are around conductivity. So as I mentioned, I have a conductivity version. Not everyone will, and you don't necessarily. If you don't, these next three will not be here. But specific conductivity, this one is your baseline conductivity measurement. It has a couple different compensation methods. Typically, when you're measuring conductivity, you want to kind of always reference conductivity at a standard temperature. So as temperature, your water is changing, you don't want that to obscure your data. So there are compensation methods to align toward a single temperature reference point, a few different units available as well. And then, as mentioned in the PowerPoint earlier, you can then calculate salinity or total dissolved solids, or both, based on that conductivity measurement. And there's a few different calculation methods for how that's done that you can select based on your preference in the field. And then, not quite lastly, but I mentioned when I opened up the device, the logger humidity. This is really it measures the internal humidity within the logger. So this is how you know if your desiccant is potentially getting saturated. Again, you want to prevent any condensation from forming in that highly accurate vented pressure transducer. So this is how you kind of monitor and understand, again, all around system health. Now, not all of these devices not all these measurements have to be tracked. You can easily delete them, just clicking on them and clicking on the trash button at the top, or you can add what's called a processed value. This will do a simple calculation off of an existing measurement. So you do have the ability to add some very simple calculations as well if there's something else you want to do. Let's see here. So the data tab, so kind of moving left to right here. Actually, I should go back. I think now is probably a good time. The specific conductivity we'll continue on. We'll come back to the specific conductivity calibration. This is the data tab. This is where you see your data. So we have a few different options. You can see it in a graph, or you can see it in different table views. Let's say I want to see the past week's worth of data. You hit the download button. Again, LinkComm just pulls the data at that time. It does not pull this immediately because, again, really all the decisions in this were made around really keeping that battery health. So it only does the actions it absolutely needs to. You can see over the past week or so here, you get a nice little line graph, and you can click on or off toggle which ones you want to see. Which values you have to see. Mine is obviously sitting in an office, so outside of temperature, I'm not getting a whole lot of fluctuation in any of my data, so it's not the most interesting to view. But you can also view your data in a group table. So this is potentially what your log file would look like. You kind of get each timestamp and each measurement. And as you can see, I'm not measuring everything all the time, so I get various measurements at different timestamps just based on what my device was set up to do. There's a few other options in here around how you want your data to be handled. And then you have the ability to download and save this as a CSV file, so effectively an Excel file that you can then view any other way or import into other programs. The next tab here is the communications tab. So this is where you set up your telemetry from the cell modem. Some general modem settings. This is where you can see the modem status, make sure you're connected and what network you're connected to, as well as input things like the phone number, a few of the other settings you may need. There's this tab for SMS commands. You can enable SMS listening. And so what this will do is at a select interval of your choice, the modem will turn on in the field to see if any text messages have been sent. So text messages are one of the ways you can actually change configuration. The manual details this out, but there are certain text message commands you can send to the station that will actually change settings in the field if needed. So just one way to remotely connect. SMS transmissions, you can send SMS messages, so you can tell your device that you want to send certain content, certain intervals to certain phone numbers, and you would just type in the phone number you want to send it to. But this would just be like every day, say you want a couple of the measurements sent to your phone, or just on limits. I mentioned limits earlier, but if certain thresholds are passed, you could then send data prompted because of certain threshold being passed to your phone number. The next is IP transmissions. This is more common, more standard. This is how you would connect to various data management servers you may have. Mine is doing an HTTP transmission. So what you would do is you would up here select the data format. You can see there's quite a few different data formats that you can send to your server of choice. You can select which measurements you want to send and at what interval you want to send it. Then down here, this is your server information. So this is how you select what server you're going to send it to, what port, if there's any kind of authentication required, like a password to get data in, as well as if on the very bottom you'll see some successful transmissions or failed transmissions. So a little bit of that information about how your device is operating in the bottom. You can enable a secondary server. So with every transmission, you can actually send to 2 servers or just one. Say for whatever reason it failed to connect to one server, you could set up the other one just as a backup server, or you could send it to always send to both servers. You have that option. And then you have the option of setting up to 2 IP transmissions. So that means effectively you can send data to 4 different servers from this device if you need to, or just set up backup or kind of limit servers as needed. And as mentioned in terms of server types, I think I mentioned this earlier, but HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, FTPS, and MQTT, MQTTS, any of those server types are possible with the ecoLog 1000, which is actually one of the advantages. We don't tie you to forcing you to use any of our data management platforms or force you to access your data. You can send your data anywhere. It's really the extensibility of this that a lot of customers like, that are really able to send the data to whatever platform they may already have set up. It's kind of easy to add to your network. The other setup tab, not a whole lot here. Really, you can name your station, type in, your latitude, longitude. So if you want that data to be kind of transmitted with your measurement data, you can do that for certain needs around certain data management solutions have that. And then diagnostics, this one's pretty simple. You really don't have to go in here too often unless something isn't working, but really just shows a lot of the diagnostics of the device, system info, allows you to do some, reset to factory defaults, go into a few other, clock setting or potentially firmware upgrades if there happens to be one available for you. All of that is available through the diagnostics tab. The next thing I want to show, I mentioned, I would get back to this, is really that measurements tab around specific conductivity. One of the really nice usability features I think that we added is how easy it is to calibrate your conductivity sensor. So I'm actually going to play a quick video on how to do that. Just kind of walks you through, that step-by-step process. So let's see if I can get this video up and running for you all really quickly. All right, it's about a little under 3 minutes, so it shouldn't take too long here. Hello, my name is Greg. I'm a product manager here at Odd Hydromet, and I'm going to walk you through doing a conductivity calibration for an ecoLog 1000 in LinkComm. So you can start either by scrolling down on the dashboard, selecting specific conductivity, or you can navigate to the measurements tab, click on specific conductivity, click on calibrate conductivity. First, it will prompt you to clean the probe and take it out of any solution so the sensor is dry. It will then measure a 0 point in order to start this calibration process. Next, it will prompt you to select a calibration solution for which you want to calibrate. I'm going to use 0.5 millisiemens per centimeter, but you can also type in a custom solution if yours is not in the dropdown. It will then prompt you to fill the calibration container you're going to use and put the sensor into the calibration solution. Once you're ready, hit continue. It will first measure the temperature, wait for that to stabilize, and then measure the conductivity, allowing that to stabilize as well. So we'll give it a few seconds here as it is taking its time to complete that. Once complete, it will verify the conductivity calibration has been completed successfully, and then it will create a calibration log detailing the calibration that just took place. Once it has created the log, it will prompt and ask you if you would like to save that calibration log for future use. If you select yes, it will allow you to save the log anywhere on your computer. It will then prompt you that the device has been rebooted to ensure a successful calibration, and tell you to reconnect if you want to make further changes to the configuration, which you can do here in the top right. But it is not required, and the unit could be deployed in the field at this time if no other changes are needed. That concludes this demonstration of a calibration conductivity for an ecoLog 1000 in LinkComm. Thank you for your time. All right, so yeah, hope that video is helpful on how to calibrate your device using LinkComm for when you do need to do a conductivity calibration in the field or office. So I will jump back over now to, let's see here, the presentation. Yep, so I just went through kind of how to operate ecoLog 1000 with LinkComm. Again, if questions kind of arise, I see there's a couple in the chat, it looks like, but feel free to ask questions that you may have from this demonstration or anything I might have omitted that you're curious about. So talking through the data transmission journey, just really briefly from your measurement sites. As I mentioned, the cell modem is an LTE-M, or sometimes referred to as Cat-M1 solution. So this is a cellular networks that are typically for low power consumption use cases. So again, really fits kind of the paradigm we have with ecoLog 1000. And it is a fairly future-proof. It's supposed to be part of that 5G network. So the LTE-M is going to be kind of with that whole 5 generation of cellular build out. So no real concern that modem is going to become obsolete or not function in the future, or no time in the near future for sure. Data server, as I mentioned, you can connect to HTTPS, FTPS, and MQTT servers. So quite a few options there in terms of data path types. And then going on, your server you can help, visualize and manage your data in a network or data management solution. We do offer a few ourselves, but you're not tied to ours. Again, that's kind of one of the nice advantages of the ecoLog platform. But if you do have a need for data management, please talk to us. We have a few options out there like Hydromet Cloud that we can absolutely help set you up with to manage and visualize the data from your stations. And then next, I'm going to quickly go into one more quick demonstration outside of PowerPoint, talking through the ecoLog 1000 toolbox. This is, just a really nice toolbox that helps you understand how your device is going to work. Here we go. So hopefully you can see this, the toolbox here. This is another free program that you can download. So you can go to our website. I think if you go to the ecoLog 1000 product page, you'll see the toolbox as one of the resources at the bottom. You're more than welcome to download that and start playing around with it. Again, free resource. It's just an executable file from a zip folder that you can click around in. So the first tab in here is around battery life and data volume. So the way this works is you set up these settings the exact same way you would set up an ecoLog. So, your distance to water, are you transmitting it? How often are you sampling it? All these kind of decisions, right? Kind of go through to figure out how you want to do it. You can add in the conductivity measurements, for example, say how often you're going to go to the field and download data locally, as well as set up what type of IP transmission you have and how many you may have. And after this, you'll click around all of these settings, and it will tell you two things at the bottom. One is your result expected battery life with this type of use case. So you'll see at 20 degrees Celsius, you could expect this one to last 9.1 years. Colder temperatures will reduce battery life, so that negative 20 C. So if you're in a really cold environment, it will be a reduced battery life, as you can see here. And then the estimated transmission volume. So this can help you set up your data plan as well. So working with say you're working with Verizon or whoever your preferred cellular network operator, this will tell you kind of per transmission for each transmission, right, depending on how many you have set up, and the total number of bytes on a per month basis. So really help you kind of set that baseline for how much, what kind of data plan you need to purchase. The second tab, I should mention, instead of clicking through this, potentially could be cumbersome if you already have an ecoLog 1000 set up. So you do have the ability to import a setup. So if you set up a device in LinkComm, you can actually export that file. It's called a setup file, and then import that file into this toolbox, and it'll preset all of these settings for you the same way you have it set up in LinkComm. So reduce a little bit of any headache that might have been associated with that. The next is the FTP command control file. So this is if you have an FTP server set up. I mentioned remote communication or remote configuration changes are possible. There's a few different ways to do that. One of them is an FTP command structure. So if you have an FTP server, when your ecoLog 1000 connects to the FTP server to transmit data, it can also look for configuration changes. And so I talked about SMS messages earlier. It's kind of similar. You would set up you can send commands or put commands into that FTP folder. When the ecoLog connects to it, it'll see that there's a command there. Pull that in and can actually change, any number of things, like where you're sending data to, how often you're sending data, what measurements you're taking, or how often. And you would really just go in. There's a lot of different user intervals here to kind of set that up as you might need to. And you can add that command to this and export it as a file, put that in your FTP folder structure, and LinkComm or the ecoLog, when it connects, will recognize that command is there, and update its configuration as commanded there. So just a nice little toolbox there, and again, free to download. So if you want to get this and kind of set it up with your configuration, you can get a pretty good sense of how many batteries that standard, or how many years of battery life you're going to get with the standard battery that comes with it, or what type of data you might expect from this. So going back into the presentation here, I think that really wraps it up on the ecoLog 1000. Let's see here. Yep. Yeah, so that was the last slide and the last thing I really wanted to demo. It looks like, we're about 40 minutes in right now. So yeah, really appreciate everyone's time listening to this demo days. Hopefully it was informative and interesting on the ecoLog 1000 product, what its capabilities are, how it works, and a little more closer to hands-on experience, kind of walking through the LinkComm interface and what is available there in terms of the configuration. If you haven't already done so, please submit any questions you have. I'll go through those in a second, any that are in the chat as is. But if you have, for any more information, if something strikes you after this event, feel free to go to oddhydromet.com to see information on the ecoLog 1000 manual, any of the software that was kind of demoed here, or information on other products as well, all the other offerings we have across hydrology, meteorology, solar industries. Or if you'd like to talk to somebody, feel free to shoot an email to sales@oddhydromet.com as well. So let's see here. I will go in and see if I can find these questions in the chat. Yeah, it looks like we have a couple questions in here. All right, so first one is around telemetry. So is there any plans to incorporate SFTP platforms, i.e. Aquarius, FTPS? I know there were some changes on the Aquarius side about how they ingest data. We have definitely previously proven out that ecoLog can send data directly into the Aquarius system. I apologize for not knowing off the top of my head what the latest is on the recommended path for that. You mentioned both SFTP and FTPS in this question. FTPS is definitely supported. SFTP is not currently supported, but there have been talks about incorporating SFTP, as well, as that is often thought of as more secure than FTPS, although both are just secure versions of the FTP protocol. So I apologize that I don't have a direct great answer on that, but I know we have proven out direct data ingestion from an ecoLog 1000 into Aquarius. So that's definitely something we can talk a bit more offline if you want to reach out to us and have that conversation around Aquarius data ingestion. Next question is, can you use any standard for calibrating the conductivity or just what is in the dropdown? Yeah, I hope if it wasn't shown in the video, yeah, when you go through calibrating conductivity, there are standard dropdowns, but you can actually type in a custom calibration standard if you use something that wasn't in that dropdown. So there's no need to only calibrate with the standards that we offer in that dropdown. There's quite a few other options there. Let's see. Next question is how often to clean the transducer and how to limit biofouling. Yeah, it's a good question. I'd have to talk with our R&D engineers. It's going to depend a lot on your use case. I mean, you're talking biofouling here, whether, if you're in a, out in the Everglades of, Florida, are going to have a very different experience than, say a mountain stream up in Montana or something like that, or some aquifer somewhere else. So in terms of how often to clean, it's really going to depend on the use case. If you're in some pretty clean water, not very often, but other places do get sediment buildup on these pressure transducers that can require more frequent cleaning, but I don't have a really good answer. I think the manual offers some rough thoughts on that. But yeah, it's going to be one of those that you're going to kind of learn from use. Yeah, on the transducer, but it is really easy to clean. Again, it's that ceramic pressure cell, so you can touch it with your finger, press it, just wipe it with a cloth. There's no real concern and damage there. All right. Okay. I meant SFTP. It looks like this is a clarification on that first question I was talking about earlier. The question on SFTP versus FTPS. Correct. Yeah. So we do not currently have the ability to send data using SFTP, just FTP and FTPS. If you're not familiar with these, I know this can sound like a lot of complexities and just moving a letter around, but SFTP is often the more definitely thought of as the more secure FTP protocol. We do not currently support it, but it's absolutely been talked about. We've heard that request numerous times. I would assume it's just a matter of time, but I can't definitively state we'll have it by X date at this point. It looks like that is the end of the question. Oh, one more on, looks like mentioned 2-inch well sizes, the other well sizes. I mentioned that ecoLog is kind of sized perfectly for that 2-inch well. We do have adapter plates we will sell, as well. If you're in a groundwater setup, you can actually, there's certain tops or caps that we have will fit on different various well head sizes and little plates to set the ecoLog in that well. That'll help you adapt, and cap heads that allow that cellular data to transmit as well. So not something fully metal, but also something you can secure and lock. if that's a concern. So we do have the option of a couple accessories to fit the ecoLog 1000 to a couple other, well sizes. Cool. It looks like that is the end of the questions I am seeing in the list. So I really thank everybody for their time. Don't really have anything else to present. Give everybody 13 minutes back of their day. But yeah, hopefully this was informative and interesting, and you learned something. If questions come up later, feel free to reach out to our organization. Contact information is still here on the screen. Don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you about ecoLog 1000 or any of our other number of other solutions we offer. So thank you all. Really appreciate your time today.